colleagues, shall we make a start? Good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome members of the public to this extraordinary meeting of Cambridgeshire County Council, particularly those watching the live stream on the Council's YouTube channel. The Council supports the principle of transparency and encourages filming, recording and taking photographs at its meetings that are open to the public. Members are advised that this meeting may therefore be filmed, recorded or photographed. We are meeting, as you know, at the Burgess Hall in St Ives with a quorum of 21 members needed to hold a meeting of Cambridgeshire County Council. This is in order to follow the guidelines we have received from the Director of Public Health to manage an indoor meeting of this side during the pandemic, particularly given the current Omicron wave. I would therefore particularly like to welcome the 10 Conservative, 7 Liberal Democrat, 3 Labour members and the 1 independent member who is actually in the Burgess Hall, and obviously a welcome to other members who are attending virtually. Those members attending virtually will have the opportunity to speak but will not be able to vote. Members in the Burgess Hall, you are asked to remain in your seats for the entire meeting. At our previous meetings, we suspended standing orders in relation to section 19.1, standing to speak, part 4.1, Council Procedure Rules, part 4, Rules of Procedure, to enable members to sit while speaking so that their voices would be picked up by the microphone system. I propose to do the same again this morning. Can I ask members to indicate their support by a show of hands? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, members. In order to register to speak, you need to raise your hand. You will then be automatically added to my list of speakers. Those members attending virtually may also indicate to speak by using the raised hand function on Zoom. Mrs. Rowe will add you to the list in order, but I would ask for your forbearance as this is going to be quite tricky to manage. So if we don't get the order exactly right, please forgive us. If you have a point of order, you will need to raise your hand and shout "Chair." This means that there has been an alleged breach of the Council Rules of Procedure or law. I will need the member to indicate the rule or law which he or she considers has been broken, or personal explanation. This may only relate to some material part of an earlier speech by the member, which may appear to have been misunderstood in the current debate. Lastly, can I please ask all members present to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate while the meeting is taking place? May I please also ask those who are attending virtually to switch to silent on their camera, because we don't want a window into the domestic soul of the members who are not here. The next item is apologies for absence. I have received no apologies. We will record those attending, and we will record those who are attending online. Item number 1 on our agenda this morning is declarations of interests. Under this item, members are asked to declare interests under the Code of Conduct in any item on the agenda for today's meeting if they are not registered on the Register of Interests. This applies only to those members who are in the hall. Those members who are participating virtually do not need to make any declaration of interest. I will be declaring an interest as a member of the Planning Committee in relation to agenda item number 2B, the motion from Councillor Criswell. However, I will be remaining in the meeting to chair the Council, but I will not be taking part in the actual debate or voting on the item in order to avoid any risk of predetermination. May I have any other declarations now, please? Councillor Sanderson, you're first.
Thank you, Chair. I need to declare an interest on the same item 2B.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. It's very kind of you to stand, but just a reminder that we need not stand for this particular meeting. I can't see who it is at the back. So Councillor Gardner, apologies.
Thank you very much, Chair. I also need to declare an interest under item 2B. As I'm a member of the Planning Committee, I will take part and therefore will not attend the Planning Committee when it does go before the planning.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner, and apologies again for not recognising you from such a very great distance. Any other declarations? Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair. I recognise the ones that have come in, but I have to ask that Councillor Sanderson declared an interest, but he didn't indicate what he was doing, and I think it'd be useful for us to know whether he's taking part in the debate and voting and therefore can't attend planning, or whether he's not taking part in the debate and not voting, like yourself, in which case he could take part in the Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Count. I think from my reading of the Constitution, it is up to the member at the time to make that declaration. But if Councillor Sanderson is happy to respond to that, I'm happy to hear him.
Thank you, Chair. I will not be taking part in the debate, and I will not be voting today.
Thank you for that. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Goodliff.
Not on planning, but I am a children and adolescent mental health professional and will be speaking on the motion A, first motion. This is on the register of interest. I just wanted to add it in. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other declarations of interest? There being none, we move to item 2, which is written motions. 4 motions have been submitted. The first motion has been submitted by Councillor Hoy. Can I ask Councillor Hoy to move and speak to her motion as set out on pages 2 and 3 of the Council agenda? Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. I've brought this motion today for what I feel is a very important issue. I was led to this after a number of residents have shared heartbreaking concerns as to how they feel there is not enough support for a growing problem. A family who have been pushed from pillar to post to get help for their daughter with bipolar, who has been only offered 6 weeks of counselling in 4 months' time. Primary schools in my division who are seeing children as young as 6 with complex OCD and are being told by the NHS that the new scheme to offer interventions isn't suitable. They're being told the young person is too high need and no solutions are being offered. The situation has also been exacerbated by COVID, with new challenges for young people that have never been faced before. I just wanted to highlight the knock-on effects of lockdown that perhaps we don't yet realise. And I don't want to tend to dwell on this for too long because I think there's so many stories we could share, but I did become aware of one young woman who had suffered terribly with agoraphobia. But having a dog helped her and became a bit of a lifeline, and walking that dog forced her to have to go outside. And she was obviously starting to improve very slowly. I understand that wasn't the only help that she needed. But sadly, she became so terrified in the pandemic by constant messaging that she's now back to square one, still afraid to leave the house. And I think we're going to hear more and more of these stories as time goes on. So much great work is being done. I don't think it's fair to say that nothing is being done at all, because I've heard also a lot of organisations and charities and practitioners that are doing a very great deal. So, for example, the Annabel Davis Centre in Wisbech, really wonderful cause. They are a charity, however, and they've got no surety of funding. And the money that they do have only allows to help children for 30 hours per week. So that's not a very great deal. When talking to the trustees, they explained to me that they feel that they're having to keep the service very low key because they just don't want to be overwhelmed. I think the analogy I would use is it sort of feels to services that do exist out there that they're trying to empty the Atlantic Ocean with a bucket. You know, it's just not enough services out there, and it's clearly not just me that feels this way. I launched a petition online when I first had the idea for this motion, and it's had over 34,000 signatures, which I believe is one of the most successful local petitions that we've had. Obviously, I didn't bring it to this council because of the way sort of the petition process works, but I think that is quite a significant amount of the public that obviously support this. People do seem to understand and see the value of investing in our young people's mental health, not only for their well-being, but to stop future issues later down the line. Now, I've purposely tried not to make this political because governments and administrations of all political colours have been woefully lacking on this issue. And I'm thankful to Councillor Goodliff seconding my motion today, and also other members who have contacted me after the cancellation of last full council to see what we could do. It was really interesting to hear from Councillor Cox-Condren as to how we can use creativity to improve mental health, and whilst it may not solve really complex needs, it certainly has capacity to improve well-being and confidence. And I was also grateful to hear from Councillor Boulat about experiences of EU migrants, particularly around accessing services. This was particularly of interest to me personally, since in my division, approximately a fifth of children in local schools have English as a second language. I really hope that going forward we can have further meetings as a cross-party group to look at how we can move forward on this important issue. However, we also need to be very tough too in terms of funding and accountability. There's no point us meeting today and saying we all agree with it and that's very nice, well done, and nothing happens down the line. So I think there's 5 strands really to moving forward. I think firstly, we need to be lobbying, cajoling, taking to task the CCG. It's absolutely not acceptable that they spend less than 1% of their budget on this issue. Not only that, but they are on the top 5, if you can call it top. I'm not sure when you're in a bad grade you can call it top, but they're the worst performing top 5 worst performing areas in the country in terms of waiting times and spend on this issue. So they are massively underperforming, and we need to accept that and be putting a lot of pressure on them. Secondly, public health. We are responsible as an authority for public health. We do make spending decisions all the time regarding prevention, for example, smoking cessation. We absolutely could decide to put a significant amount of spend towards mental health. I didn't include this in the motion as I didn't want to be too prescriptive as to the amounts or services that could be offered, but I would ask the chair of that committee if he would give the matter some thought. I see I've got a light, so I'll hurry up. I'm nearly finished. Scrutiny. We're told that health scrutiny comes under the Adults and Health Committee, so we can't look at it as CYP. This is a bit wrong, and so we need to be able to scrutinise this issue and keep a watching brief. So I'd just ask the Leader of the Council if she could have a look at this, please, in future, just to see if there's some way we can resolve that. And just the finally 2 points. The government, this is a massive national issue. Whilst I would like Cambridgeshire to lead the way, it would be dishonest if we failed to mention the government and the lack of commitment on this issue. It wasn't in the spending review, and it makes economic sense, so they need to do it. And so we need to lobby government. And finally, we must have words, not action. I'm really excited that the part about the hubs has been left in the locality, because that will be a real decision that we're making today and actually hopefully real change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Goodliff, I think you are to second this. Do you wish to speak now, or do you want to reserve your right to speak?
I'd like to reserve, please.
Thank you. So that being the case, Council will now debate the motion. Any speakers? Mrs. Rowe, any speakers indicating online? Councillor Cox-Condren.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hoy. I think the mental health hubs are absolutely vital. I'd like to add the words of Desmond Tutu that there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they are falling in. I know that we are all dedicated to doing that, but I'd just like to say a few words about some of the children in my ward and across the county. I'm working at a school that serves children from my ward in Arbury. 1/3 of the children are living in homes where the police have been called for domestic violence incidences. There are children sleeping 8 people in 2 rooms, children who are the main carers for their parent, children who, because of a school system that is so focused and pressured on academic outcomes, already feel useless by the time they arrive at secondary school. I take food into workshops knowing that they'll arrive hungry. One of the child support counsellors I work with said they're seeing the devastating impact that cuts to preschool early learning has had on the development and well-being of children. Yesterday, I took a small group from this school to a tree belt in North Cambridge. Some of the children didn't even know that Cambridge had a river, despite living 1 mile away from it, despite us knowing the benefits of being in open spaces, of access to trees, water and nature. That is a terrible inequality. We were in this nature area yesterday for about 35 minutes. One of the boys said it was the best day of his life. The arts continue to be annihilated. Thank you, Sam, for mentioning them. Councillor Hoy, thank you. The arts continue to be annihilated and cut out of school curriculums when the arts and creativity at the very core of exploring who we are, our place and connection to our environment, an essential means for our young children to express themselves and to nurture the imagination needed to visualise new solutions and a better future. We need to continue to fight the healthcare bill and the consequences that the integrated care system being forced upon us can have, resulting in more privatisation, can have on our mental health services and the well-being of our children. I did say I'd be swift, and I could actually go on and on about the devastating effects that austerity, greed, and relentless cuts are having on our children. But thank you, Councillor Hoy. I totally support this motion. And as you said, working collaboratively, I implore us all to work together upstream to prevent so many children from falling in across the. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dr. Boulat.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you so much to Councillor Hoy for bringing this motion to Council today. I think there's a lot of local support on this, of course, shown in the petition and also in my division having conversations on mental health. I was actually speaking about this topic with the local charity in my division in Abbey, and I would like to bring two very, very brief points to the debate as well. What was pointed out in a lot of conversations I have locally is the importance of having an accessible service and accessibility from the start of our conversations. And I thank Councillor Hoy for mentioning language needs, for instance. So it's really, really key, I think, for as a council to work with all the other organizations, small and large organizations who do a lot of brilliant work on this issue. For example, I noticed that organizations such as Doctors of the World already have a lot of materials that could be helpful on mental health that are already translated in over 20 languages. So again, trying not to duplicate work from what's already been done, but trying to integrate more the services together in terms of the provision. And second, what really comes out in a lot of conversations I have in Abbey is the importance of including local knowledge, community leaders, and also local access, especially in such a diverse county as we have with different newer communities, refugees and asylum seekers and other people as well. So I think we need to speak to as many organizations who are really every day on the ground supporting communities to understand those demographics. For instance, yes, members of our community who may not even have the language to actually express their mental health needs, and it's something that I do relate to as someone coming as a migrant to the UK, not really knowing how to speak about some of those mental health issues. While I also don't think that we can entirely solve the national level crisis on mental health services, and yes, thank you, Councillor Hoy and others who mentioned that government needs to do more and has to do more on this issue. I think that's a really, really welcome step, and I congratulate everyone involved, a really welcome step to improve the lives of many people who are in need in our county in Cambridgeshire. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Councillor Netzinger.
Thank you. I'd like to add my thanks to everybody who has brought this motion. I think it's really excellent that we've got this morning and that there is so much agreement on the priority that needs to be given to this topic in the council, but not just in the council, also in our relationships with all of our partners around, and particularly in health. And I just wanted to say that I know that this is something that is a priority for Susan van der Ven, who is working, certainly children's health is something that she is very keen to make sure remains a key priority as we move the ICS work forward. And we will be making sure that we are picking up the crucial nature of the work that needs to be done in improving our health response, but also improving much more of the wider response. And some of that is also about working with schools. So thank you very much indeed to Sam and Bryony for bringing this, and I support everything that's been said so far. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have no... Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I totally welcome this motion put forward by Councillor Sam Hoy. When we look at these early support mental health and wellbeing hubs, you've only got to spend a few minutes online to discover these are advocated for by many, many charities, funding trying to be raised for that. Charities such as Mind, Young Minds, Youth Access, the Centre for Mental Health, as well as bodies such as the Local Government Association and the NHS and many more bodies and organisations. And they all understand the reason why they're needed. I'm aware that Cambridgeshire County Council currently offers some help, but during my Googling of looking for that, the headline for the help that the Cambridgeshire County Council currently offers is a signposting exercise operating during office hours for professionals. Those are the first lines that come up. So if you're a young person in crisis and you're looking for help, and the first lines you see is a professional can call this number during office hours, it doesn't really help them very much on that day. And if a professional calls at this point in time, it's a signposting exercise. So I do think that this is a way of getting to improve what we are partnering in as an offer in this vital area. The mental health and wellbeing hub being offered in a local community offering as an open access, flexible and early support for young people under 25 would be an absolute and complete game changer. If you put yourself, it's a long way back for me, I must admit, but if you try and put yourself in the minds of a youngster that's going through some sort of a crisis and that individual starts seeking help, on the present system, Googling online tells you to find a professional, which means you have to approach a doctor, a teacher, perhaps someone from social services to start your journey. And that is very, very difficult at this point in time. You know, the doctor's surgeries are full, the teachers are busy dealing with COVID, and I'm sure that many of them would welcome that conversation with open arms. But to a young person, that is quite a fearful step sometimes for that. How off-putting is that when, as a young person, you may have self-confidence issues, scared of authority, or worried that your concerns may not be taken seriously? So the current setup almost promotes them talking themselves into a corner where they're worried about actually approaching help because you might be considering that you're wasting somebody's valuable time, or that you're actually scared of that approach. And a community wellbeing hub is absolutely the reverse of that. It's very opening, it's very welcoming. We heard earlier on from, I think it was Councillor Corden, about getting things upstream. And the evidence suggests that if you can get some mental health in early, the differences are immense. If you leave it too late, then the actual issues are ingrained and very difficult to deal with and need much greater interventions. So that's why I want to support Councillor Hoy's call on the various issues, including getting this mainstream, to call on government to recognise the funding that is needing, to make the CCG absolutely aware that its proportion of spend in this area is insufficient, and to start to plan for a hub in each locality to make it easier for anyone needing services to find and utilise them. So thank you for all the kind words of encouragement. It sounds like we've got a good thing going here, and the next step obviously will be, after this motion, if it's carried, will be turning these actions into words across the board. So thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Councillor Count. I have no other speakers indicating, so I now ask Councillor Goodliffe to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I know I've already made a declaration in regard to this motion, but I must further make that declaration now. As a child and adolescent psychotherapeutic counsellor, this is something that's very dear to me. As a parent and as a family, we have used local mental health, and as a chair of children and young people, we have responsibility for the children's mental health of all our children living across the county. And as a personal declaration, as someone who lives with depression and mental health illness, I feel it is my responsibility to stand up for those in our county who need our help. First, I must praise those who work in mental health across our county, the schools that prioritise mental health, including in time, funding and training of their staff, the many charities and voluntary sector agencies that work in this area across the county, and our NHS staff. Until our children's mental health services are both fully funded and functional, available at point of need rather than the stopgap approach that has gone on for too long, our current levels of mental health will continue to increase. There is a need that has been building for the last decade, and we as a local authority, together with Councillors Howitt and Van Ven, are ensuring that this is a priority for the integrated care services as it is set up. We have also been working with the COSMIC Committee and the Adults and Health Committee and Children and Young People Committee together in order to make sure that as a county council we make this a priority. The mapping exercise this motion proposes will bring together all of these agencies, both charity, voluntary sector, schools, and indeed the very strong and positive online sector, which offer services to our young people. We must make sure that our coverage is across the county and available at point of need. As an organisation, I know that we will, and we work hard for our children and young people, and I'm really pleased that this is a cross-party motion, and I'd like to thank Councillor Hoy for bringing together this motion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. That is the conclusion of the debate. We now move to the vote. There seems to be a general... Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Councillor Hoy, how terrible that I forgot that you got the right to sum up.
That's okay. I'll try not to be very long anyway, to be honest, because a lot's already been said. Just thank you very much to everyone for the support. Thank you to all of the speakers. The only thing I slightly disagreed with was the point about austerity, because as I said in my original motion, I don't think actually... we've seen it, you know, Gordon Brown's government didn't do much for children's mental health. I don't think Keir Starmer particularly would. It's not, I don't think, necessarily a political thing, because it feels like nobody takes it seriously at all. It's kind of a, this is too expensive, too difficult, let's kind of leave it over there and never deal with it. And that's of all parties, you know. I'm not sort of saying the Conservative government's any better in that regard. So I think we all need to accept, even if it's difficult to hear, that our parties aren't doing enough on this issue. And I think the main thing I would say is it actually can be seen as an investor save as well, because as it mentions in the motion, the Mind the Gap project that ran in London Borough of Camden showed that every pound invested had a social return on investment of £3.40. Now I know that's obviously sometimes can be a bit of a fudge, because how do you put an economic value on social things, although I believe there are some economists that can do that and do that, but obviously we all know from our lives as councillors, we're always saying these things all the time. If you don't get in and intervene, people end up in social care, which costs us money. People present in hospitals, which costs money. So I think we all can see the logic of it, and we're all saying the right things, but nothing ever gets done. So hopefully today will be the start of actual action. I think that these locality hubs will be really good if they have a focus on mental health, and I'll be really excited to see where we're going to open the first one and what will happen with it. So hopefully, fingers crossed, to a positive way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Members, there seems to be a general consensus and support of the motion. If anyone disagrees, can you please raise your hand now? There being no hands raised, I see no objections. We will take the motion as carried. So thank you very much. We now move on to the second motion as submitted by Councillor Criswell. As I indicated earlier, as a member of the Planning Committee, I will not be taking part in the debate or the vote in order to avoid the risk of predetermination. And I think we are aware of where Councillors Sanderson and Gardner sit on this matter as well. Can I ask Councillor Criswell to move and speak to his motion as set out on pages 3 to 4 of the Council agenda? Councillor Criswell.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and good morning, members. Yes, as has been made very clear in the motion and in the briefing that members have received, today is not considering a planning application. In the fullness of time, our excellent planning officers will reach a recommendation based on planning policy, and our committee members will make that decision on the planning committee. And the Environment Agency will decide if a permit is granted. This motion is about supporting public concern. It's about the acceptability of incinerators and the extreme unease of the public we serve. And it's not new, Chairman. Previously, it's been seen with waste applications and proposals at Warboys, Thriplow, Waterbeach and Wisbeach. Indeed, nationally, there are campaigns to refuse incinerators supported by MPs. Our local MP, Shailesh Vara, is offering his support. We acknowledge the desire to move away from landfill, but not at the cost of our air quality. We have already stated our intent to improve air quality in Councillor Count's motion 2 years ago. the public's concern about toxins emitted by incineration are very real. Envar has yet failed to demonstrate a local need for an additional healthcare waste incinerator, which raises the prospect of importing such material from far and wide to maintain capacity. Yet more HGVs in the central diamond of the county, where we are actively seeking to reduce them. In this council, and indeed nationwide, there has been a move to reduce single-use plastics. An unavoidable consequence of the pandemic has been the huge increase in disposable plastic equipment and protective clothing. I hope that one of the few positive things to emerge from our learning over the last 2 years is that the production and disposal of such high volumes of plastic is not sustainable or desirable. In fact, in the several years it would take to build and commission the Envar incinerator, I am hopeful that the level of waste requiring that disposal will have reduced significantly. Recyclable and reusable must be the way forward. Sustainably sourced materials, truly green energy, and pollution-free processes need to replace incineration, and we do need to do all we can to encourage it. Well over 1,000 objections have been received to the Envar incinerator application, and just prior to this meeting, I received a petition from local residents containing over 2,700 names. My constituents, Chairman, are deeply concerned about the prospect of an incinerator being imposed on their rural environment. I share their concerns, and the thrust of this motion is to demonstrate that this council does too. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Griswold. Have you a seconder?
I do, Councillor Fuller.
Councillor Fuller, do you want to speak now, or do you wish to reserve your right to speak? It's the button at the front on the right.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Chairman, I can't wear my glasses and my mask at the same time.
I hear your pain.
I so second, Chair, and I would like to reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. In which case, it is now open to debate. Do I have any speakers? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chairman. There are a number of statements in this motion with which members of this joint administration would of course agree. Green energy, the need to reduce waste overall, the need to find alternatives to single-use plastics, the dangers of emissions such as dioxins, the tendency of incinerators to establish their own demand for fuel. And we understand, of course we understand, the local concerns about this application, which have been numerous and vocally expressed. We have seen previous motions to this council relating to significant and unpopular planning applications, the proposed incinerator at Wisbeach, the proposed energy farm at East Cambridgeshire and West Suffolk. However, both of those applications were of such a scale that they will be determined by the Planning Inspectorate on behalf of the Secretary of State, and this council is merely a consultee in those matters. This motion steps over a line because it's asking the full council to set policy on a planning application which it is the responsibility of this council's own planning committee to determine. We don't intend to engage in the content of this motion because whatever we may all think about the planning application for this incinerator, which is in my next door division, it's a matter for the planning committee, and they will need to consider it on the basis of the evidence in front of them. This motion should not have been put to this council today. It could lay the council open to legal challenge in the event that the planning committee decides to refuse the application. And even if it does not, it causes reputational damage to this council if we are seen as an authority which does not trust its planning committee to do the job delegated to it, and which makes policy on planning applications submitted to it outside the proper framework of the planning system in advance of those applications being determined. The proper forum for this debate is the planning committee, and for that reason and no other, we will not be voting on this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre.
Chair.
I have
point of order.
Point of order. Councillor Count, your point of order, please.
Yes, Chair. Could I ask that the monitoring officer confirms that this was confirmed as being an order for this council to hear and does not put us at legal challenge and has been created in that way. Otherwise, it can't come in front of us. And I just think that, you know, we need to hear from the monitoring officer on that because it's clearly written in our constitution this has been cleared.
Thank you, Councillor Count. Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have confirmed that this motion is in order and I have given legal advice on it and in fact taken external legal advice, and I'm happy that you can debate the motion today.
Thank you very much, Chair and Monitoring Officer. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Councillor Jonas-King, you indicated to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's actually really disappointing what we've just heard from from Councillor Dupre there and the joint administration. I think that's just an attempt to give up all responsibility that this council has to represent the views and the needs of the people of Cambridgeshire, and I think that's really, really disappointing to hear. I've spoken about it many times on the lack of ambition that the climate change and environment strategy has, along with the lack of additional investment that could have been put into it. And I think you've got an opportunity here, this council has an opportunity to really show and lead the way in terms of climate change and its environment strategy. The additional emissions that this project will bring is in contradiction to the environment strategy. The additional congestion costs the UK economy 6.9 billion per year, and the additional traffic and the emissions added onto that with this facility is again in complete contradiction to the climate change and environment strategy. So I'm really disappointed to hear that view from the joint administration. I think it's, like I say, in contradiction to the climate change strategy, and I think it's just really just giving up all responsibility that this council has to represent the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Any other member? Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair. I was slightly taken back by the statement made on mass.
Councillor Count, if you'd like to take your mask off when speaking, that's acceptable.
I do appreciate that. You get to forget about them, don't you? But yeah, remind me to put it back on as well. That's the important bit. Yeah, I was very disappointed with the opening speech on behalf of the joint administration, who have obviously decided what they're going to do on mass and don't have an individual thought, but they've presented their case, which has been wiped out in one fell blow by the monitoring officer saying this is in order. So dancing on a pinhead to try and avoid decision-making can be exposed, it will be exposed, and I feel really sad for the residents that are going to have this inflicted upon them, because you've decided that a councillor's role is not to speak up for residents on cases like this and actually use subterfuge in order to come to that opinion. But I'm going to actually move on to things that I had prepared rather than just maintain my anger at the way that decision dodging is going on by the members of the Joint Administration. On this Friday coming, members of the Strategy and Resources Committee will be hearing a lot about developing a well-being model as the aim for aiding our decision-making, the donut principles some people might know it by. Now, I've got quite a lot to say about that paper. Some points I'm for it and some not so sure and some against. But for those that are fully sold on the simple idea of looking at all proposals through the lens of a resident's well-being, I cannot see how this waste incinerator or a waste incinerator can ever stack up. Look at it through the eyes of the residents, and that's what we as councillors are supposed to be doing. A constant flow of extra lorries destroying the peace and harmony of a local environment because the waste isn't dealt with at the point of consumption. Those same people constantly worried about what they're forced to inhale due to what is coming out of the chimney stacks. The environment harmed by emissions and pollutants such as dioxins not guaranteed to be fully removed in the process. The circular economy which we've adopted as a council, this is wasting resource and working against the carbon net zero policy and the circular economy policy that the Conservatives introduced at this council. You can see already how frustrated and worried the residents are. Banners, action groups, the people outside, petitions with 2,700 throughout that area. And this is not NIMBYism. These are residents who have seen what is proposed and are genuinely concerned about the damage to their lifestyles, health and lives, those of their children, neighbours and their families. We are not alone in our call for this to be halted. A cross-party group of MPs, chaired by the Labour MP, Geraint Davis, has called for a halt to the building of new incinerators. So I was hopeful that the Labour group present today will not undo his good work, but will support Councillor Criswell's call for action. In fact, I call on all councillors here to rethink their positions, those that weren't going to support Councillor Criswell's motion, but join with us and present a united front and support this motion. Councillor Dupre is right about one thing. We don't decide whether the waste incinerator gets built or not here. That is not the purpose of the full council. But our purpose and this motion is to let everybody know what we think about this proposal being on our own doorstep. So that's all I have to say on this motion, but I must ask, Chairman, considering what we've heard so far, can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Thank you, Councillor Count. I'm sure if you have sufficient numbers to indicate a recorded vote, we shall have a recorded vote. I believe that it is 14.
Chair, could I just point out that as we've agreed to a quorate meeting, I'm wondering if we could suspend standing orders and have the same proportion of the quoracy of 21, which would seem to me to be only fair.
I will take legal advice on that, if I may, Councillor Count.
You can of course suspend standing orders if somebody moves a motion to do so, and if the meeting wishes to do so, then that's fine.
Thank you. So, do I hear any member asking for the suspension of the standing order in relation to the number of members calling for a recorded vote? So, Councillor Count is proposing the suspension of that. Councillor Maguire, you're seconding. We shall move, unless there is any debate on this, we shall move to a vote. So, Councillor Count?
Chair, just as a point of order on this actual vote, I believe it has an effect on this motion, on the way that we record this motion. So the earlier exemptions of yourself and Tom Sanderson from voting, you said you will not be taking part in this debate or voting. I believe that that would apply to this as well. If you vote on this, then I don't think you'd be able to take part in planning. Happy for you to check whether I'm right in my assumption with the monitoring officer or not.
Monitoring officer?
Well, I think you probably would be advisable not to take part, was my advice.
Yes. Councillor Netzinger?
In case it would be helpful, if Councillor Count would like a recorded vote on this, I wouldn't have any problem with supporting him in having a recorded vote, in which case we could probably make the decision without suspending standing orders.
On that basis, Councillor Count, are you happy to proceed? Thank you. So we shall have a recorded vote on this. Now, any other members wishing to speak before I call the seconder and proposer of the motion? Councillor King. Councillor Bowden. It's been a very, very long day already, and it's only 11:10.
Thank you, Chairman, and I'll try to make your job easier by not speaking for too long. I was very disappointed by the unsympathetic speech from the administration and from Councillor Dupre about this motion, because whilst it's clearly been initiated by a particular proposal which is going to come forward, the requests which are being made are general and surely should have the support of all members in this room. We're being asked to lobby government to move away from incineration and instead focus on the circular economy and using green solutions for energy generation. We're being asked to encourage the healthcare industry to move away from the use of plastics in favour of more sustainable alternatives. And we're being asked to encourage those giving rise to clinical waste in this county to fully utilise existing facilities, including the incinerator located at the Addenbrooke's hospital site. What in that can any member in this room object to? And I will be very disappointed if, on further consideration on this matter, that members do not support this motion, because the proposals which are put forward are very clear and surely should command the support of all those who want to see a stop to incineration in this county and in this country. And we are not here trying to determine, we're not even purporting to determine any particular future application. We are talking about a general principle, and surely all of us can agree those general principles, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I just feel very sad that the joint administration, by the statement of their deputy leader of the Lib Dems earlier on, has shown that it's got no intention of supporting residents in their very valid concerns. I totally support Councillor Criswell's motion and hope that those in the room will vote for it, despite what's previously been said by the administration. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hoy.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, I'll be voting for this motion because I think every time a community builds an incinerator, it sets back real solutions by 25 years. And that's because that's the time it takes to pay back the massive investment that's involved. Every time you burn something, you have to go right back to the beginning of the society. So the extraction, manufacture, consumption, then to waste. And after 25 years, you're just not really closer at all to sustainability. All you're left with is a pile of ash, and that's approximately 1/4 of the mass of the rubbish that was burned. Promoters of these claim that the incineration produces energy and fights climate change, but this is utter nonsense. 3-4 times more energy is saved by recycling the same materials as burned. And one European company estimates that a combination of recycling and composting reduces global warming gases some 46 times more than an incinerator generating electricity. So they don't even solve the problem that they claim to solve. I was against the incinerator in Wisbech, and so obviously if I was not in support of this motion today, it would be pure hypocrisy and would be massively NIMBYism. However, for the reasons I've just mentioned, I would of course support opposing them in probably any area, to be honest, based on the fact that I think they're very useless. I always feel the companies promoting these incinerators are very happy to build them, but I don't ever see any of the directors of these incinerator companies having them close to them, which surprises me given that how wonderful they say they are. I shouldn't see them having any issue with them. I'm very disappointed that obviously the administration are going to abstain on this. It's not surprising. It's sort of similar to the Seneca one, which was sort of changed and messed around with the motion. And I think that the voters in Somersham should take from that they probably do actually, Lib Dems and Labour Independents probably do want the incinerator there, and that's why they aren't sort of speaking up strongly against this.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Any other members wishing to speak? Mrs. Rowe? In which case, I'm going to ask Councillor Fuller to second the motion.
Thank you, Chair. As the other neighbouring division member for where this proposed incinerator is likely to go, I'm delighted to second Councillor Criswell's motion. Now, I've been involved in the planning process at town, district, county councils for different years at different times and different stages. And so I'm the first to completely understand that, as unpopular as it is a point to make, planning is not democratic. Planning is quasi-judicial, it's administrative law. We understand that. But that's why Councillor Criswell's motion does not seek to enter that quasi-judicial planning space. It very clearly, in the wording and in the 3 points that are being moved, it very clearly asks us repeatedly to recognise the level of local community concerns. That, as we've heard quite rightly from our monitoring officer, both today and in the text on the motion, where it clearly states that it's a matter for the council to determine and it's in order. That's why, Chairman, we can and we should be able to debate these type of issues today. And that's why I think it's a great shame that the Liberal Democrat, Labour and Independent members of the joint administration don't wish to recognise that strength of feeling from our communities today. As you've heard from Councillor Criswell, not only there are 1,000 detailed planning objections to the application itself, there are also nearly or over 2,700 signatures on a petition that he's been presented with today. All of the local councillors are supporting Councillor Criswell in this. The local MP is supporting Councillor Criswell in this. And I just think it's really, really disappointing for our residents who are not interested, frankly, in the main, in party political games and machinations that take place in this chamber, that we've got the joint administration members who, in Councillor Dupre's own words, will not engage. How arrogant, Chairman, is that, to say that they will not engage in an issue that carries this level of concern in our local community? That's a clear message that I hope those residents that are listening to this debate today will take away very clearly. I hope they will see who are standing up for them, who are trying to do the right thing for them, and I hope they will see those who have absolutely failed them and let them down by sitting on their hands and refusing to even engage and take part in this debate and this vote today. Yourself and Councillor Sanderson excluded, of course, Chair, because you've quite rightly declared your interests. I wonder if they would sit on their hands and remain so silent, Chairman, if this were happening in their own area. If they would say to their own residents, I'm sorry, we will not engage because this is a planning matter. It's just unacceptable, Chairman. It's not what my residents, who are very upset about this, expect to hear. And it's certainly not what Councillor Criswell's residents want to hear either. There's absolutely nothing stopping us from, as the motion asks, recognising the strength of feeling over this. That's what we're doing today, and that's why I will absolutely be supporting this motion.
Thank you for that, Councillor Fuller. And finally, Councillor Criswell.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, to say I'm shocked is an understatement. It would appear that everybody is in support of this motion, Chairman, apart from the administration at Cambridgeshire County Council. I'm embarrassed and rather ashamed at that, Chairman. I had hoped that with a very strong voice, and of course it appears from this side of the chamber there is a strong voice, that ENVAR actually might reconsider their application. That's certainly not the message that's being given from the administration, that this incinerator isn't welcome. In fact, I would say that the attitude of the administration is actually would give them some encouragement, which is extremely disappointing. Showing support for the residents of Huntingdonshire, Chairman, and respecting their views was what this motion's about. So those that do not vote for it, exceptions of course for those that have declared an interest, really is not expressing that support at all. And I have nothing else to say, Chairman, but I'm just very pleased with having a recorded vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Criswell. That brings the debate to an end. I will now move to a vote on the motion. The vote will be recorded. So, Mrs. Rowe.
Thank you, Chair. I'll read your surname and please then would you indicate how you wish to vote. Beckett.
No vote.
Bowden.
In favour.
Count.
In favour.
Coots.
No vote.
Criswell.
For.
Dupre.
No vote.
Fuller.
For.
Gardner.
For.
Goodliff.
No vote.
Hoy. Kindersley.
Abstention.
J. King.
For.
S. King.
For.
MacDonald.
No vote, Chair.
Maguire.
For.
Miskini.
No vote, please, Chair.
Mills.
No vote.
Nessinger.
No vote.
Reynolds. Sanderson.
Abstain.
Shayler.
No vote, Chair.
Chair, the result is 10 votes in favour, none against, 2 abstentions. So the motion is therefore carried.
Thank you, Mrs. Rowe. Councillor Count, did you have a point of order or a point of personal explanation?
Point of order, please, Chair. Could I ask for clarification? You'll recall that we was at the pre-brief yesterday, and very clearly the position then was an abstention. Whether that was a vote or not was the question that was asked. So for the aid of safety, the monitoring officer said that in order to take part in the planning, that it's best not to have an abstention, but to have a no vote. This is what you and Councillor Sanderson indicate at the start of the meeting, I understand, but you've both actually indicated you've abstained, if I understand things correctly. So I'm just concerned at what's going on here and whether that has, in fact, now you've left yourselves open to challenge. So it's on your behalf I'm asking that question.
Thank you, Councillor Count. I think either a no vote or an abstention is perfectly acceptable to avoid any sense of predetermination for the Planning Committee, which of course is a decision that members of the Planning Committee have to make for themselves at the time. I don't know if the monitoring officer wishes to add to that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. An abstention is neither a vote for or against, so it's essentially won't affect the situation that we have with Planning Committee. So I don't see that as a problem for the chairman and Councillor Sanderson to have abstained.
Am I right in my recollection that yesterday you said it would have been cleaner to have a no vote than an abstention?
Yes, but that doesn't mean that I'm not allowing it. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Count. I realise you are always looking out for my best interest. That now concludes the discussion of that motion. We move to the third motion, which has been submitted by Councillor Simon King. Can I ask Councillor King to move and speak to his motion as set out on page 5 of the Council agenda? Councillor King.
Thank you, Chairman. And may I begin by wishing everybody here and remotely all the very best for 2022, and let us hope we will return to a state of normality, perhaps, or more normality than before. This is not designed to be a controversial motion in any way, and the unanimity we discovered when we discussed the first motion, I hope we will rediscover on this. When the Conservative administration was the administration, I was delighted that we put forward an increase in the spending on roads, footpaths and drainage. And we did that because there was a general recognition that the funding was inadequate and had been inadequate for a long time. A lot of that is due to the amount of money that we have to spend on adult social care, quite rightly. People understand that. But certainly people were also extremely grateful when we proposed this increase in funding for our network. Now, I'm not putting this forward, although I'm a member of the Conservative group and very proud to be so. I'm not putting this forward as a Conservative. I'm putting this forward on behalf of my constituents, because my constituents were very worried that the increase that had been agreed would not be honoured by the new joint administration. Now, I'm really pleased that at the December meeting of Highways and Transport, this increase in funding was confirmed. So I think there was a degree of recognition by the joint administration as well that this historic shortfall needed to be addressed. So I wanted to put this motion forward to make sure that it was recognised by the people we serve that we are united, both the opposition and the joint administration, in wanting to improve the state of our network. And I hope that this will gain the support of everybody here, and I'd like to move this motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor King. I understand Councillor Maguire is seconding. Councillor Maguire?
Chairman, I am pleased to second it, and I will reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any speakers? Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the motion from Councillor King. I'd like to first of all say that it's confirmed that the initiatives added through the amendment at the February 2021 full council remain with the current proposals. So, to be clear, that's an additional £4 million per annum for each year, 21-22 through to 25-26. A total of 6.7 million improvements to the B1050. A total of 2.73 million for flood attenuation and improving our biodiversity right through that period. And the second part of Councillor King's question was to address, in terms of underspends, the Council's normal and long-standing process is any capital spends due to slippage are rolled forward to future periods. Revenue underspends from ring-fence and general funds are reported corporately and considered as part of the budget. So the business plans, to be clear, do not propose to reduce any of the additional investment agreed by the full council in February 2021. These business plans include the traffic management aspects, highway service delivery, review and baselining of the place and economy, resurfacing and street lighting service review. But I do want to add some additional context and I would ask members to actually vote against this motion for the reasons I'm going to outline. The motion suggests that somehow this is business as usual, in a change from the previous administration to this administration, and I would say it's certainly not. Councillor King, he may be aware, I think I engaged with him personally, when we were doing a number of gully clearance in one of my parishes. They had not been cleaned for so long that we had to find a metal detector to actually find those gullies. So this kind of routine programme, which was abandoned in the previous administration, will not only be reinstated, but it will be enhanced. Regarding footpaths, we are planning a more robust process for this to avoid situations which one of our members found, where they stopped contractors repairing a footpath which didn't actually belong to the county. The Pothole Repair Fund, as we've talked about in committee, in the Highways Committee, of some £4 million, is still envisaged and will continue as it is in the plan, but of course that's subject to the government funding. And I should add that once again, through a planned strategic scanning of the network, we should be able to really focus on areas where work is needed. I'm really grateful to members in the Highways Committee, Councillor Maguire, Councillor French, Councillor Sharp and the JA members of the Highways Improvement Board, a new joint administration initiative to align our needs with our needs to those of residents, as you mentioned. I'm afraid, Councillor King, I can't support the motion because it assumes we accept some kind of status quo overall in highways, and that is certainly not the case from our perspective. Status quo is not part of our joint administration objectives. It's a significant improvement in road and path conditions, but more importantly, it's a complete overhaul in the way we deploy our limited resources. And for that reason, I would ask members to vote against. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't intended to speak on this motion because, to be honest, I thought it was going to get a unanimous support today. And I'm really quite shocked to hear that the administration is proposing that it be opposed. I have been very concerned to see the quantum of underspend that there has been in many parts of the highways budget in the current financial year. And for the benefit of those who are listening remotely and may not understand the word underspend, it's not that the work which had been budgeted for has been done, but done more efficiently and more cheaply. What it is that the work which has been budgeted for hasn't been done at all. And that is the situation that we find ourselves in well into the time of this current administration now, and producing in this current financial year very significant highways and maintenance underspends. And it seems to me to be perfectly reasonable to ask that these underspends be ring-fenced for the purpose that they were originally budgeted for roads, footpaths, cycleways and flood prevention. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me at all. But there are two things which are requested in this motion. First of all, honouring the increased investments which there were passed by this council earlier back in February 2021, that those increases be honoured, and secondly, that the underspends on that budgeted number be ring-fenced for the same purpose. Now, I'm not sure which of those two things the administration isn't willing to do, or maybe it's both. But I think that by voting against this, the message which is being sent, and apparently, we'll wait and see the vote, but apparently by the Labour Party, by the Liberal Democrats and by the Independents, is that they are not willing to give those undertakings, and they are not willing to honour in full the ring-fencing of the underspends. And that's a message which, if you're willing, through you, Chair, if the administration is willing to be carried back to the people of Cambridgeshire, then we will carry that message back to the people of Cambridgeshire that that's what this administration's about.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Jonas King.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I welcome what is a very, very sensible motion here. This year we have seen, as has just been mentioned, massive underspend in our highways, our footpaths, our cycleways, and lots of work, maintenance work and highways bids that have just not been delivered this year that should have been, such as the crossing in my own area on Owl Way, which should be currently built and keeping the children crossing what is a busy road very safe, but that's been failed to be delivered amongst other things. The enhanced budget put forward by the previous Conservative administration recognised the need for further investment in our roads, our footpaths and our cycleways. In my own area, I've got a lady with a broken foot, a 65-year-old lady who broke her foot on a unrepaired paving slab that hadn't been fixed for around 20 years. I have elderly and disabled residents that cannot move around outside their own homes, which is affecting their quality of life. It's vital that this enhanced budget is protected and ring-fenced, and that this council commits to making sure that that investment is delivered for the quality of life of our local residents. So I will support this motion, and I plead with everyone to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would be supporting this if I was allowed to. Unfortunately, most of us were not allowed to attend today, which is very disappointing. I'm very disappointed to hear Councillor Peter MacDonald's response to this. Repeatedly, I've asked him, please come to Fenland and see the state of our appalling roads, not just in March, but right across Fenland. I had a meeting with a new officer some 9 weeks ago who marked a pothole that had been missed. As today, it is still not been repaired. It's absolutely appalling that the potholes in the state of our roads in Fenland, you know, we've got the money in there and you're not prepared to spend it. Shame on you.
Thank you, Councillor French. Councillor Shaler.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the motivation behind Councillor King's questions. I do understand that this comes from care for constituents. However, not long after the submission, as acknowledged by Councillor MacDonald and Councillor King, these questions were answered at Highways and Transport Committee meeting. And this leaves us with a somewhat superfluous motion, but one that also leaves an impression that I would like to address. We are a pragmatic lot on highways and work across party. So I want to take this opportunity to reiterate that we work for everyone in the county, no matter where you live or who you vote for. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Shaler. I have no other Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take my mask off. I'd like to point out that a number of members, not of my group, haven't been wearing their masks during this meeting, and seeing as you insisted on it, I would like you to be aware as you look around the room as to what it should or shouldn't be done. I'd like to support this motion, and I'm really sad to hear that, yes, we totally agree with it. Everything in this is right. In fact, we're going to do so much more, was the actual response of the joint administration. But not only are we going to do more and we agree with it, we're going to vote against it. Well, if there was, you know, if that was really the true starting point, then when the original motion went forward for the original meeting that was so haphazardly cancelled, an amendment to that effect could have gone in. It could have said, yes, we agree, but look at what else we're doing, look at how we're doing. But it didn't. There was plenty of time then to arrange that, but it didn't go in time. So I'm sorry, but I don't actually believe the claims being made. If you believe and you're supporting this, you would actually support this and vote for this, not vote against it. And I think that there is a level of trust, because I think I can speak on behalf of the residents that live near the A1123 or A1421. They were dismayed when one of the first actions in power was to overturn the Conservative proposal to downgrade those roads to B roads. I think it's that kind of behaviour that makes it imperative for us to lock in the gains made under the Conservative administration to put highways on a sustainable footing to deal with our roads, footpaths and cycleways. And one of the reasons we've asked for that is because you voted against it. This £20 million, £4 million a year on the footpaths was voted against by Liberal Democrats and voted against by Labour and the Independents. So, but once we locked it into the budget, having lost the council, we're asking that you continue with it. But we were dismayed as well. We were really just upset. At the last Strategy and Resources Committee, we discovered you'd slashed £4.2 million from the highways budget in year 5. Right? That's now been addressed due to pressure from us. And this is another example of us trying to put pressure on that you meet the obligations and the finances that are made available to you before. But I suppose you felt comfortable that in 5 years' time that will be someone else's problem in the far distant future, and you hope that we haven't seen it. We have, and we know, and we're glad that you've addressed it. Well, today we're hoping to secure on behalf of the residents that the increased funding you previously voted against, you're going to keep in to stop our highways from deterioration. But I feel perhaps, as others have said today, perhaps Councillor King's motion did not go far enough. At last count, you had hemorrhaged so many staff in highways, you were 68 members of staff short. LHI bids were drifting further and further behind schedule, and around £8 million of capital programmes have drifted into next year because you failed to deliver them. And £454,000 worth of new scheme development sat idle in the bank accounts for an entire year with no plans to use it whatsoever. So we shouldn't have just asked that you refence and use the budgets. We should actually ask that you use the budgets you've got to repair the roads that need it. And perhaps this motion didn't go far enough. But I'm not surprised you're not supporting it, because all it does is draw attention to the fact that you're not delivering. We have the budget coming up on the 8th of February. And when you oppose this today, but say that you're supporting you're supporting the fact that this money should be spent on roads, I think we'll be exposing it on the 8th of Feb as to the untruth that actually is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Count. Councillor Netzinger.
Thank you very much. I also was not intending to speak on this, and I'll be very brief. I just did want to absolutely clarify that the budget papers, which have now been published and are coming to the Strategy and Resources meeting on Thursday, show very clearly that we have taken forward the budgets for highways. What we are not willing to do in this motion is connect the previous Conservative administration with any improvements in our highways and road network, when almost all residents across Cambridgeshire are aware of the serious deterioration to our roads and footpaths and cycleways and gullies which occurred on their watch. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chairman. I like some of the previous speakers, wasn't intending to speak, but I will. And I'm in the situation where I'm going to have to leave very soon because it takes me 40 minutes to drive to Burgess Hall, which is where I'm meant to be for the Highways and Transport meeting at 12:30. So I find either I watch the end of the next motion, or I'm late for Highways and Transport. But anyway, just really want to concentrate on the bottom of the second paragraph of Councillor King's motion in terms of underspends carry forward and being ring fenced into future years, because one of the finance papers we're considering today at Highways and Transport is on finance, and there's a very low level at the moment of spend. If you look at the end of November compared to the budget, yet the forecast is showing that it's going to be fully spent. I'm no expert on how that they've got their planning in terms of spending that money, and we know a lot of spend happens in March because budget's available, but I would be very disappointed if the underspends on those lines are not carried forward into future years, because sitting here now, I cannot see how some of that is going to be actually spent, although the officers at the moment are forecasting it. Thank you.
Thank you, and drive safely, Councillor Sharp. Councillor Machini.
Thank you, Chair. Now, I do appreciate that there's quite a lot of new people on this council, but, I do remember Councillor Count and Councillor Bowden being here, for a while. So they will remember what things used to work like when they were in administration and we were in opposition, and we were trying to pressure them via motion to commit to spending this way or that way. And the answer they used to give us, which is, we don't govern by motion in this council, we govern by the budget process. So you want to spend money, you bring it to the budget. and that's how it's going to work. So, you know, that's one of the reasons why we're not supporting this. And also, you know, everyone's upset by the state of the road, but take some responsibility for what you did over the past 4 years with all that money that didn't go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Simone Taylor.
Thank you. Just would like to say that I have been here for the last 6 years, and I do remember what the previous administration did to our highways. I waited 6 years for a road to be resurfaced. It has now been done. So it just shows that, you know, you're not saying what you know, are. 6 years to get a road resurfaced? Disgusting.
Thank you for that. I have no other members indicating they wish to speak, so we turn now to Councillor Maguire to second the motion.
Chairman, I've already seconded the motion and reserve my right to speak, which I'll now do. I too am disappointed and actually quite amazed to hear members of the administration saying that they don't intend to support this. I presume that means they're going to vote against it. I won't repeat what others have said, but I did, other than to highlight something that Councillor Shayler said, where he referred to this motion as being superfluous. That may well be true, because he outlined the fact that generally we worked well in highways and the Transport Committee across parties. But being superfluous should not in itself justify voting against it. Later today, as Councillor Sharp has already mentioned, after this meeting, Chairman, the Highways and Transport Committee will meet. And one of the first things on our agenda will be to approve the minutes of the meeting that was held in December. I'm going to take the liberty, Chairman, of quoting from those minutes, which I believe we will approve. And it's the item was under the review of the draft revenue and capital business plan and proposals for the period 22 to 27. And it says, in the second last bullet point, that it was clarified that the previous administration's commitment of £29.7 million over 5 years for improvements in footpaths, gully clearing was being maintained. Officers confirmed that the proposals in the business plan had not changed other than being moved from revenue to capital expenditure. So notwithstanding that, Chairman, that does not make reference to the underspends, which we've already heard, and certainly Councillor Bowden has outlined them, is more to do with slippage rather than savings on schemes that have already happened. So therefore they are effectively commitments. Chairman, it seems to me to be hypocrisy to hear members say they're going to vote effectively against this for something which they've already, in terms of highways and transport, that the joint administration has already agreed with. And therefore it may be superfluous, Chairman, but it nevertheless is a fair motion, and just to confirm, as has already been said, for members of the public to actually hear the full council confirming what the highways and transport already believe should be happening. Chairman, at that point, I would ask members opposite the administration to rethink that and to vote in favour of this motion, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And finally, Councillor King.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, that was a shock. I really didn't think that this was a controversial motion. And just to address a couple of points that were made, Councillor Shayler, I don't think this is superfluous. I think that a motion being passed unanimously, as I had hoped, by a full council would send a very powerful message to all of our constituents. And certainly my constituents would have welcomed that. Secondly, the comment about not taking responsibility for the state of the roads, not true. I made it quite clear in my opening remarks that we accepted that the roads needed additional investment, and that's why we had proposed it previously. And Councillor Count, if I remember rightly, in the budget debate last year, actually made a reference to that we had been forced by circumstances to spend less than we would have liked on the roads, and we needed to address it. So, you know, I don't think we're trying to dodge responsibility for the roads. And, you know, I listened with astonishment to Councillor MacDonald, because I didn't hear a single thing in what he said that justified voting against this motion. I listened very carefully. Perhaps it's something we can have a word about afterwards. Perhaps I misheard, but I didn't hear anything. So I would just urge all of our colleagues, both on this side and on the joint administration side, to support this motion. It's not controversial, and as Councillor Maguire read out earlier, it's something that is going to happen anyway, except for the underspends. And the underspends, you know, we can talk about separately. But I urge you to support this motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor King. I'm now going to move to a vote on the motion. All those in...
Could I just request a recorded vote, Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Thank you, Councillor King. Recorded vote. We're in the middle of the debate previously. We needed to suspend standing orders. That is, of course, unless there is general agreement that we should have a recorded vote. Do I hear general agreement? No, okay, there isn't general agreement for a recorded vote. So, in which case, do I have a proposer for the suspension of the relevant standing order to reduce the number of members required for a recorded vote? Councillor Count, you are proposing that. Councillor Maguire, you are seconding that. So we'll move to a vote on whether or not to suspend standing orders such that we have a recorded vote. So those in favour of suspending standing orders, please show. Those against? Those abstaining? Mrs. Rowe? The standing orders will not be suspended, so I'm sorry, Councillor King, there will not be a recorded vote. I'm now going to move to the vote on the substantive motion. All those in favour of Councillor Simon King's motion, please show. All those against, please show. And any abstentions? No. Mrs. Rowe?
Chair, it's 10 votes in favour, 11 against, no abstentions. The motion is therefore lost.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Rowe. That concludes discussion of the third motion. We now move to the fourth motion as submitted by Councillor Kevin Reynolds. Can I ask Councillor Reynolds to move and speak to his motion as set out on page 5 of the Council agenda?
Thank you, Chairman. It seems somewhat strange sitting here addressing you and the Council, something I'm not used to, but I will, of course, follow your wishes. Chairman, I'll start to state quite clearly this is not political shenanigans in any shape or form on my part. In order to achieve brevity, the wording of the motion does not fully convey the points I would like to emphasise to the joint administration. And I'll continue this brevity in my short address, as I've got one eye on the clock and I'm conscious there is another meeting due to start. You will recall at our annual meeting at Duxford, myself and many others expressed genuine concern that these two committees were to be merged. Both health and adult social care committees require an extensive lead-in period for their respective memberships to fully understand their roles and respect and value the cultures of both disciplines, allowing them to develop skills in both managing and discharging their responsibilities, as well as acting as a critical friend to partner organisations, usually in the scrutiny role. And as many members are relatively new to local government, and indeed the perplexing health culture, this need is further amplified. Understanding these intricate cultures is extremely time-consuming from a layperson's perspective, and we are all lay people. Lack of understanding and time pressures can lead to poor or incomplete decision-making. These committees account for a large part of our annual budget and by their very nature invariably consist of statutory duties that we have to discharge. They are very much demand-led, often resulting in often stretched and overspent budgets. While it is early days yet, less than 12 months since the change, my concerns still remain that we, members of this council, cannot discharge our responsibilities by spending so little time on these issues which impact on every member of our community, regardless if you live in Cambridge City or a Fenland village. Having fewer but longer committee meetings does, in my view, exasperate an unsatisfactory situation. 6-hour meetings are not conducive to sound decision making, and many important issues like scrutiny are not given the time or focus it warrants. It is clear that members are wilting at these excessively long meetings. When well-intended changes occur, there are often unintended consequences, and it is my intention that the wider community of Cambridgeshire is not being best served in these two vital areas. Unfortunately, history shows us that inadequate delivery of crucial services only come to light in the event of tragic events such as case reviews by an outside body. Not only do we now have an opportunity to reflect on what we are doing internally, but also have the opportunity for a fresh set of eyes to look at our concerns via the peer review process. And I'll finish by again making this plea for a review. It is not political mischief making in any shape or form. It's just to get these two vital services back on track. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Bowden, I understand you are seconding.
Yes, I'm pleased to second this motion, Chair, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howard.
Thank you very much, Chair. I hope I'm being heard properly. This Conservative motion saddens and disappoints me. What saddens me is that the wording of the motion and the speech from Councillor Reynolds adds absolutely nothing to what was said by Conservative councillors at the annual meeting on the 18th of May last year. Not one new argument, not one piece of evidence. Instead, all the evidence is that Cambridgeshire County Council, under the joint administration, has actually given extra priority to health. We've given the highest priority to dealing with the COVID pandemic. We're the only authority anywhere in the country to secure and get extended enhanced response area status. In our health scrutiny role, already we've undertaken detailed reviews of the all-age autism strategy, the work at Royal Papworth, the provision of NHS dental health services, access to primary care, occupational therapy waiting lists, neuro rehabilitation service, and the East of England Ambulance Trust. What's more, we've passed a highly important report setting out our strategic approach to the integrated care system, the risks and benefits to our services and to our citizens, a paper which sets out our agenda for working with our health partners for years to come. And we've launched a programme of quarterly liaison meetings with Addenbrooke's Hospital, Cambridge and Peterborough Foundation Trust, Cambridgeshire Community Services, the Clinical Commissioning Group, Royal Papworth, Hinchinbrook Hospital, and the Cambridge Cancer Research Hospital. Chair, 18 members of Labour, the Liberal Democrat and Independent groups attend these meetings. Attendance from the Conservatives has been just one member. The opposition should really consider whether this council has deprioritised health, it has not, or whether the Conservatives have done. Indeed, in prolonging their opposition to the integration of health and social care within our committee structure, as we seek to do within our services, Conservative members should also look at other Conservative county councils. Devon Adults and Social Care Committee, East Sussex Adult Social Care and Health Committee, Hampshire Health and Adult Social Care Committee, Hertfordshire Adult Care Health and Wellbeing Committee, Nottinghamshire Adult Social Care and Public Health Committee, Somerset Adults and Health Committee, Staffordshire Health and Care Committee, Surrey Adults and Health Committee, Warwickshire Adult Social Care and Health Committee, West Sussex Health and Adult Social Care Committee. If they really believe it is dangerous, that it is poor decision-making to merge these two committees, perhaps they should start by trying to persuade their other Conservative counterparts first. Chair, Conservative members should also ask themselves why, according to Public Health England figures, taking Finland as an example, life expectancy and mortality rate from all causes are both significantly worse than for the rest of England when the previous Conservative administration left office. And Public Health England also shows that these figures worsened, not improved, under the period of office of that administration. Life expectancy is 8.6 years lower for men, 3.2 years lower for women in the most deprived areas of Finland than the least. Now, I'm not saying there are easy answers to that, but one thing is certain: having a separate committee in the committee structure of Cambridge County Council did not help the Conservative administration to reduce health inequalities. So this motion, I'm afraid, is a sign of the continuing lack of humility from the Conservative group, their failure to understand why they lost last year's election, and of their lack of self-awareness of what they need to do to start being a constructive opposition within Cambridgeshire County Council. Instead of attacking the new joint administration on our committee structure, the Conservatives, if they are genuinely concerned about health inequality and not playing party political games, should join the joint administration in our commitments to genuinely tackle health inequality. For our new public health strategy to focus on what are the greatest inequalities and where we can make most difference. To support the £2.9 million we have invested in public health catch-up programmes, which have been put on hold during the pandemic. To utilise all the policies and service areas of the County Council to affect public health, adopting the World Health Organization Health in All Policies approach. To recognise that poor housing, education and poverty are the social determinants which lead to health inequality, and to join us in making these social determinants of health central to our public health strategy going forward. And to go into the new integrated care system with an overt policy to champion shifting resources towards tackling health inequalities, what the health experts called the health population management approach. If the Conservatives really want to prioritise health, join us in this task.
Thank you for that. Councillor Dr. Van der Ven.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Howitt, for your excellent speech. Councillor Reynolds, thank you for your motion and for your concern for the success of our council's work on health and social care, which I'm sure is shared passionately by everyone. I cannot accept the premise of your motion, however, and therefore can't support it. Health has not been deprioritized in any sense. On the contrary, the joint administration is being bold and ambitious, as Councillor Howitt has set out, in playing our role in tackling the integrated health and care challenge. Your own government has set in motion legislation on the principle of integration of health and social care. There's plenty to say about these reforms, which are not without controversy, and certainly it is an enormous challenge to deliver large-scale health and care reforms during a pandemic and a workforce crisis. But I think there's consensus that integration has been long overlooked and is badly needed. For us in Cambridgeshire, this means playing our statutory role in the formation of the integrated care system, where our leadership in public health and children's and adult social care is central. The joining up of health and social care in one committee, the championing of health in all policies, and the participation of members of the children's and cosmic committees in our health scrutinies quarterly liaison meetings with many NHS partners has given us as elected representatives the opportunity of a wider perspective and understanding, both of the many services commissioned by this council which straddle the realms of children's and adults' health and social care, and also the conversation with our ICS colleagues on strengthening our collaboration for the benefit of our residents who are at the heart of what this is all about. I hope more members of the opposition might consider in getting involved in health scrutiny, whether on committee days or through the quarterly liaison meetings, which offer such good opportunity to help shape our work. These meetings take place on many different occasions and are actually relaxing and fascinating. There's a very little preparation work. It's simply a conversation to think and discuss openly and informally. And this is what shapes our health scrutiny work. So the invitation has been reiterated many times, and I sincerely hope that you will take the opportunity to join in something that interests you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Now a moment of excitement. Councillor Schumann, we're not sure which one because we can't see on our screen.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope you can hear me and now see me.
Certainly can now. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman, may I start by saying that I'm utterly disgusted by the previous decision to not suspend standing orders by the administration. Our cooperation as a party to adhere to the quorum of today's meeting has now affected our ability to hold a normal meeting, as I understood we were trying to achieve from having this quorum meeting today. I think it's an utter abuse of power, and the administration should be ashamed. Moving on to the motion we're considering today, now, and this is around the merging of health and public health. And may I start by saying it's somewhat disappointing and quite concerning that I've heard the conflated issues of merging health and social care. Health and social care merging is entirely different, and the merging of health and public health during a pandemic would seem deluded at best, and just demonstrates the lack of understanding this administration has for the different roles that this council plays in this forum and in this field of health. Councillor Howard, through you, Chairman, mentioned that there is a lack of new evidence between when we've raised this issue prior to today's meeting and today. But Councillor Howard must admit that the new evidence from our perspective is the dramatic U-turn that the administration had to make almost within months or weeks of deciding to reduce the number of meetings, in having to use all the reserved dates in order to try and fulfil the business of so many areas of this council. That for me is evidence alone that merging these two areas has caused an increase of pressure and time constraint, and therefore needs to be reviewed and to ensure that good decision making is still being taken in a timely manner. Other new evidence that has been made available to us is, as our members have indicated, 6-hour meetings is inappropriate. Indeed, Oxford University and Edinburgh universities have produced evidence which suggests after 90 minutes, the ability to maintain good decision making and focus dramatically and significantly reduce. On that basis, Chairman, that after 90 minutes, good decision making reduces, and noting the time, I don't intend to make any further comments because I don't expect any good decision making is likely to now occur after hearing the comments from the previous two speakers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann. No other member has indicated to speak. Oh, right. Councillor Hoy, I think you had your hand up next, and
yes,
then Councillor Fuller, and I think Councillor Count. May I just draw your attention to the time?
Thank you. So I was very pleased that Councillor Howard in his speech mentioned housing inequalities, because it's so rare that I actually hear that when we talk about health or public health. Actually is a really, really massive reason for poor health. I've often said that rough sleeping is seen as a community issue and an issue for district councils, but actually it's a really serious public health issue, particularly given levels of addiction often suffered and how many rough sleepers often end up passing away far too young and far too early, because it is a massive public health issue. However, I don't believe that it's ever been to committee, or certainly not within the last few years, because it seems to me that public health is currently on that committee is never about what is actually working and actually real solutions. It's about whatever cause they feel they can virtue signal the best about. I mean, Councillor Howard was championing the enhanced area, but no one is looking at any kind of other knock-on effects, like we mentioned earlier, mental health. There seems to be complete denial about any kind of issues or problems that it may have caused, almost like, well, we have to say it was wonderful. We can't actually look at, has there been any problems? We have to be in denial and just look with tunnel vision. Now, I actually do see the logic to integrate health and social care, particularly when we're talking about discharge of elderly patients. Often they go into social care, and those elements do need to be talking to each other. And we've often heard where people are being delayed at the wrong time and social care isn't picking that up. So I do see a lot of logic to that. However, one problem that we've recently identified, which is, in my opinion, a very severe problem with this, is the total lack of scrutiny over children's health that I think there currently is. The Children and Young People's Committee have absolutely now no power to scrutinise children and young people's health. We have been told that the scrutiny function rests entirely with the Adults and Health Committee. Now, we can have papers to come in, we can have people to discuss things, but we haven't got any real power to hold anyone to account on that committee. It has to go to Adults and Health. And I don't believe there's been any item on the Adults and Health Committee about children's health. What about best diet in life? What about dental care? What about mental health? All of these issues that children and young people face are just not being discussed or scrutinised. And for me, that is the main reason I think that we need to support this motion, is because there is a problem that is not being addressed.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and keep it brief because I hadn't actually intended to speak on this item until I heard Councillor Howitt's response to what I thought was Councillor Reynolds' very measured and sensible contribution to this debate in moving this motion. And I think without flattering him too much, we have to remember Councillor Reynolds has been in local government for a very long time. No disrespect, Councillor Reynolds. And when he speaks, he does so in a measured and reasonable way. And I think it behoves some of us, including Councillor Howitt, who only took his place in this chamber last May, to perhaps listen sometimes. You don't always have to agree, but let's listen and treat with a little bit of respect. And I tend to think when you get a response, the sort of what we got from Councillor Howitt, which was the debate version of battering Councillor Reynolds with a rolling pin, it makes me wonder if actually we're on to something here, Chair. The fact he came across in such a way does make me wonder if Councillor Reynolds has got a point and he's hit a nerve, perhaps. And I think if we actually read the motion, and it's something I've learned today from the joint administration, who I generally do try and work with them at the best of my ability, but something we've noted, I think, from this motion and the previous two, is just how sensitive they are, with respect, because on each of these motions, they seem to make something bigger than actually exists in the text of the motions. Councillor Reynolds' motion here simply asks that as part of the return of the corporate peer review team, they're asked to prioritise and pay attention to looking at the changes that were made. I see absolutely nothing wrong with that, Chair, but if there's anything we have learnt, not only from, and I agree with Councillor Schumann, the disgraceful way that our goodwill has been taken advantage of today in refusing such a basic request as a recorded vote, but we've also learnt it since last May, is that this joint administration is absolutely terrified of scrutiny. Now, I won't list all the things that Councillor Count speaks with great authority on about reducing committees, reducing meeting dates, and so on and so on. But a basic request to ask a corporate peer review team to come back and take a view on something as important as this, and this administration wants to deny that and argue so vociferously and aggressively against that, one has to question why. And I just think it's a great shame, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Count.
Thank you, Chair. I think considering the way that today has gone, I'll be asking for a recorded vote again on this. And considering the comments by Councillor Schumann regarding the last vote, we did agree to a quorum meeting because we thought this was a way to move forward. Said to the members of the public that you don't want them to know precisely which way you voted. What sort of a councillor takes that attitude? I don't want people to know which way I voted. That's what happened in the last one. So I'm going to ask for a recorded vote again, and I hope with those comments and those of Councillor Schumann and others, we've shamed you when we asked for a suspension of standing orders for you to actually fess up, own up, and confess to what you're going to vote for in this case.
Councillor Count,
now,
you've made your point. Do you have substantive comments to make on this motion?
I was speaking to the motion. I was asking for a recorded vote on this motion, Chair. And that is the last political point I'll make, because like Councillor Reynolds, this was not a political one. The political one, perhaps there was an element of that back in the original motion when we said you're deprioritising health. There may have been, an element of that, but there's a sheer belief that it's not working at the moment, and that's been laid out through a number of cases here. It's really unfortunate that it was received in this way, particularly by Councillor Howard, who seems to have taken this personally as undermining his workload or what he's achieved or his committee has achieved. And he's quoted a number of achievements of what's actually been delivered. However, I think you're conflating delivery with good decision-making and scrutiny, which is what this motion is asking for, because we don't believe that there is enough going on in that realm. We also worry about the integration of public health throughout our organisation, which we all seek and agree to, is not working well this way. And that's why we haven't gone gung-ho and criticised. We've said, you respect the peer review group enough to invite them here and publish their report and listen to them. They're supposed to be coming back in 6 months. We're asking, seeing as we have raised valid concerns about whether this is good for the residents of Cambridgeshire or not, whether you will ask them to focus on this again when they come back in 6 months' time. And to vote against that is particularly disappointing, I've got to say. There was a number of quotes about actual outcomes and how the previous administration had done so bad, particularly on lifespans. It takes decades to turn around lifespans. But if we take other issues, such as the ones that public health actually tackle, cessation of smoking, for example, Finland was reduced from 27% down to 16% in the space of a single term. That's a huge achievement that the public health managed to do, and that one day will lead to better outcomes in life expectancy. This motion deals with the outcomes, which are a length from the words. We fully support the integration of health, but you cannot achieve that by simply stating itself onto another inappropriate committee and then telling other committees, such as the children's, that they cannot scrutinise the health of their children. Instead, the executive director offered to tell the committees what had been decided for them. That is not scrutiny, and that is not good decision-making. The other part of the thing is, I'd just like to ask, the peer review completed on July 22nd, 2021, and was to follow up in 6 months, which was just before Christmas. At Strategy and Resources, we've been informed the 6-month review would now take place in January, then February, and the latest iteration I've had is March. So we are keen that our voice, whether directly through this council or as impartial as members of the opposition, when the peer review return, to raise subjects like this. So can I ask that they are actually coming back at some point in time so we can raise these important issues? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kent. I'm sure that the Leader of the Council has taken that comment under advisement. Right, I'm now going to move to Councillor Bowden, who reserved his right to speak. Councillor Bowden.
Excuse me, I had got my hand up.
Whoever, Councillor French, apparently your hand
It's
is...
Councillor Hay, I had got my hand up.
Hay. Right. In which case, Councillor Hay, would you like to go first?
Yes, please. I previously sat on the Health Committee and was sub on the Adults Committee. And the amount of work that was involved in both was massive. I can honestly say they were two of the hardest working committees in County Council, together with CYP, of course. By uniting both committees, it's hampered the ability of this council to get enough time to discuss the business that is needed. And currently the chairman shuts down debate. We are not allowed long enough debate items. We are not allowed to ask questions and get an answer straight away, so that if there's follow-up questions, we can get answers to those. By the time that all questions are being put to officers, quite often, they get mixed up and they forget to answer some of the questions. The way that the Adults and Health Committee is run at the moment is a disgrace to this council. And there certainly is not enough time to debate. And that is one of the reasons I think that we should have a peer review of this to see how it is working. Because I cannot look my residents in the eye and say that we as a council are giving off our best in either of these areas. And until such time as we have a clear peer review, we won't know if that truly is the case. All we've got to go by is the people who actually sit on those committees and are very unhappy with the length of time, because by the end of the day, people are getting tired. They want to finish the business. They want to go home. The very fact that health is always left till the afternoon shows you the importance that this joint administration puts on health. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal which is being made for a recorded vote from Councillor Count, but I think I need to correct something that Councillor Josh Schumann said when he thought that the administration should be ashamed that they're refusing recorded votes. I think he's got that the wrong way round. The administration are refusing recorded votes because they're ashamed about the positions that they are taking and they don't want them to be made public. And on the basis of the speeches we've heard so far from the administration, including the quite unnecessarily aggressive attempts by Councillor Howett to party politicise this motion, I don't expect that this motion will be passed today, but that doesn't change the importance of what is being said. If we look at health, and Councillor van der Ven knows this to be true, under the previous administration, at every meeting, the chairman suspended standing orders as his first action to allow full and constructive debate and questioning to take place. Now, under the current chair of the combined committee, standing orders are applied so strictly, as indicated by Councillor Hay, that absolutely no free-flowing debate is allowed, nor are members allowed properly to question officers. And this can't be right. Good decision-making requires good administrative and meeting structures which provide adequate challenge and scrutiny. And we don't currently have that adequate challenge and scrutiny in adults or in health. Now, if we don't have adequate challenge and scrutiny, there's an increased danger that the council will make mistakes. And in neither adult social services nor in health can we afford to make mistakes. So I'd appeal to all of the members of the administration today to think again. And if not today, then in the weeks and months and years ahead. Because you all know that it's true. Good governance is essential to good decision-making. Poor governance eventually leads to error and poor outcomes. Adult social care and health, public health, they're too important to take unnecessary risks. We need more time to consider properly the vitally important decisions that we need to take in these two areas. And mark my words, Chair, a failure to do so will result in avoidable failures in future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bowden. And finally, Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Chairman. Very briefly, the movers of the other motions said how disappointed they were on the response. Well, I'm not disappointed, Chairman. I am disappointed I wasn't shocked. The others were shocked. I tried very hard to take the politics out of this motion. With regard to Councillor Howett's comments, I'm afraid that he spoke too quickly and aggressively for me to fully understand the points he was trying to put across. Many of us have been involved in this sector for many, many years, where it's always been acknowledged that health and social care are too important to be subjected to what appears to be political dogma. And I said this twice in my introduction to the motion. It is not about politics. I did not attack the administration. That bit I did hear. I did state well-intended changes do not always work as intended. Also, I did not suggest health had been deprioritised. So where those two comments come from, I've got no idea. I did ask for a review, but clearly that is not on the agenda for this administration. I thank those who supported this motion. However, I'm quite pragmatic, and it'll give me no pleasure in years to come when I have to say, I told you so.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Count has proposed and Councillor Bowden has seconded a suspension of standing order relating to the number of members required to ask for a recorded vote. Do I have any debate? Councillor Netzinger?
Thank you, Councillor Kindersley. As with the previous occasion...
Chair in this respect.
Thank you, Chair. As with the previous occasion, I am happy to support a recorded vote on this occasion. Therefore, we probably don't need to suspend standing orders. I would like to say that I am a little concerned at how frequent these are becoming, but I don't think there's any point having more debate now.
Thank you, Councillor Netzinger. In which case, I assume Councillor Count, Councillor Bowden, you are happy to proceed to a vote on the substantive item. Right. So we are now voting.
Chair, sorry. A point of order.
Councillor Schumann, possibly?
Thank you. Indeed, Chair. I let the previous comment from Councillor Netzinger go, but I didn't realise Councillor Netzinger had the unilateral ability to suspend standing orders in our constitution by simply stating she will and will not accept when she will take a recorded vote. And I'd like the monitoring officer to confirm whether that is the case or whether actually that we should be keeping to our constitution and the rules within it.
Councillor Schumann, do you think this is really worth our time?
Chair, I think our constitution is incredibly important. I'm surprised the chair of any council would dismiss that by saying it's not worth our time.
I think the chair is being pragmatic, given that there is another meeting coming along and everybody is in agreement on this particular one item.
Chair, pragmatism is all well and good and welcomed, but when pragmatism actually affects the ability for an administration to fetter when they can and do and don't choose a recorded vote, I don't think that's pragmatic at all. I think it's abuse of power. And if you, Chair, are willing to continue that abuse of power, then so be it.
Councillor Schumann, I think possibly you might drop me a note apologising for accusing me of abuse of power when you come to think about this after the meeting.
Chair, I didn't actually. I think you'll find that I didn't accuse you of using power. I said if you're willing to continue.
Councillor Schumann, I think we've heard quite enough. I'm now going to move to a vote on the motion put forward by Councillor Count and seconded by Councillor Bowden. So the motion is to...
Chair, a point of order.
No, Councillor Schumann, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting any further points of order from you.
So you're going to continue your abuse of power because that is in our constitution. This is a point of order and a point of clarity under our constitution.
Councillor Schumann, I'm proceeding to a vote as you requested. Are you happy, Councillor Count, that I take a vote on your motion?
I'm obviously not happy because Councillor Schumann has introduced a new point of order and I don't know what that is.
Are you happy with me to proceed with the vote on the motion that you've put forward, and I will come back to Councillor Schumann's point of order if he has one after the vote.
Chairman, I don't know if that's to do with the voting procedure. So the Constitution states if the point of order is raised, you should take it then.
Councillor Schumann, put your point of order, please.
Very polite. Thank you, Chair. My point of order is to ask clarity for the monitoring officer whether we are behaving in line with our Constitution. I'd like the monitoring officer to respond.
That's not a point of order, but in any case...
Chairman, I think what the question that was asked of the leader was whether or not they were in agreement with a recorded vote. She's indicated that she is in agreement with a recorded vote. Therefore, I understand there's a consensus of the meeting to have a recorded vote. I don't quite understand the point that Councillor Schumann's making.
Sorry, monitoring officer, did we not have a proposal duly proposed and seconded for suspended to be suspended on the basis that we would accept that the number of people required to call a recorded vote would be reduced?
Yes, but where there is consensus of the meeting, you do not need
and
to go through...
Sorry, monitoring officer, if that's just a simple yes, we're done, and on the basis that we had that proposal and seconded, is it not within our constitution that vote is then taken, or are you suggesting that's not how we operate?
I'm saying the convention for years, as far as I'm concerned, is that when the meeting signifies agreement, a vote does not need to be taken.
Thank you. Your interpretation is interesting. Thank you.
Right, everybody clear? We are going to take a vote on the proposal by Councillor Count to suspend the number of councillors required for a recorded vote. No, I do need to, because Councillor Schumann knows the Constitution better than everybody else. So, all those in favour of Councillor Count's motion, please show. Okay, happy? Thank you, that's unanimous. We now move to the vote on the substantive motion All those in favour of Councillor Reynolds' motion, please show.
Chair, my apologies, but the whole point of that was that we have a registered vote. And, yeah.
Right, Mrs. Rowe, let's go through the list.
Okay, when I read your name, can you please say how you wish to vote? Beckett.
Against.
Bowden.
In favour.
Count. Coots.
Against.
Criswell.
For.
Dupre.
Against.
Fuller.
For.
Gardner.
For.
Goodliff.
Against.
Hoy.
For.
Kindersley.
Against.
King, J.
For.
King, S.
For.
MacDonald.
Against.
Maguire.
For.
Miskini.
Against.
Mills.
Against.
Nessinger. Reynolds. Sanderson.
Against.
Shayla. Shayla.
Against.
Chair, the result of the votes are 10 votes in favour, 11 against, no abstentions. The motion is therefore lost.
Thank you, Mrs. Rowe. So that, members, concludes our business on the agenda for today. Can I thank members for their contributions both in person and virtually, and wish every success to the Highways Committee that's meeting approximately now, and a safe journey home for everybody else.